Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Like and subscribe. Apparently, we have some infighting between Xbox and the Overwatch team, aka what the hell's the company that makes that fucking game? I've never played it to be honest with you, so I got fucking. Was it Blizzard? I don't know.
The corporate sides of Blizzard Entertainment, Activision,
Ah,
and Xbox
Blizzard
are
and
all losing
Activision.
some
Gotcha.
power. Overwatch's developers have decided they do not want to be blindsided again. The layoffs of 2024 were catastrophic, they deeply hurt that team, and they killed any chance of PvE, so now that team has taken action. Here's what that
Oh,
means 200 developers are banding together to make sure that their management are held accountable, that staff are protected, and that they're able to make the best games they can. Because, funnily enough, folks, putting years of your life into something only to have it be cancelled, along with you and your team being fired, is what happened to masses of the Overwatch development team. It is why we did not get the Overwatch 2 that we wanted, that we were presented. It's why I titled this video Overwatch 2 is Dead, because the team is now moving on and the Overwatch 2 that was promised will never happen. And that means that, of course, the remaining staff want to protect themselves. All of that would be great news if we didn't have Microsoft leadership in the other side of the negotiating table, because in the last 3 years, they've been accused of a lot of.
Call of Duty studio Raven Software alleges bad faith bargaining in complaint against Microsoft and Activision. Unionized staff at Raven Software have filed a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board after claims both Activision and Microsoft are stalling over contract negotiations. Aw, shit, son.
Sketchy behavior.
So we getting okay. So we're getting down and dirty. That's what's going on here. Because it wouldn't be the first time that a company in the U.S. has taken its own creative freedoms on United States labor laws, but at the same time, nobody really knows what's going on behind the scenes except for the people there. Um, so that's a problem. There's going to be a lot of fucking kind of mud in the water as far as like who's really telling the full truth here. Because the majority of what you're going to see online when it comes to stuff like this is a lot of speculation. It's a lot of this and that and whatever. Um, Granted, there probably is some receipts. I haven't looked into this personally. So, what I'm getting from this is going to be what I see in this video and maybe what I look. If I care, I might look up a little bit about it after this. So, we'll see.
Toward their unionizing staff.
Because I'm going to be honest, I really don't care about Activision or Blizzard, neither of which were a part of any games that I care about within like the past 6 years. So,
So much so, the developers are considering material actions against their employer, such as strikes. And this is all in spite of Xbox's promise of neutrality. Because while the Overwatch team has succeeded and the Warcraft team has succeeded, there are grim reports from elsewhere within Xbox. And if you care about things like, say, your video games having good quality assurance, you should care about this. And look, I know that I am currently recording a video, right? And it's a video about unions in America. The comments here may be fun, but I would just say consider this. You know, all that profit, all the line going up, you know the way it doesn't feel like it trickles into your games, and that means you feel like you're taken for a ride by these companies? Say, take EA. They recently slashed development.
EA reportedly lays off 300 staff, cancels new Titanfall game.
Staff on Apex, Jedi, a Titanfall incubation project, another Respawn project, and their customer experience teams. You'd think they were struggling, but no, they were not struggling. That year, they spent $2.5 billion on stock buybacks. I am not here to say that unions are perfect in every case, and that just more union and more powerful union everywhere all the time will somehow make everything better. No, things are about balance. And there is no doubt that the power imbalance here is vast. And in a world where Clara Obscura, Ghost of Tsushima, and Baldur's Gate 3 show us the tangible product and consumer benefits of cultivating talent and treating teams well, In contrast to the typical AAA, I think there absolutely is a place for developers to band together.
I do believe that's true. I do. I believe there's like two sides of every coin, right? I'm sure from a Microsoft standpoint, they see it as the optimal route to take, as well as the devs who are banding together also see it as the optimal route to resist. So I'm sure they both have their reasons. There's probably not an easy solution to this. Because if there was, then we wouldn't even be at the point to where it's like making like gaming headlines. Uh, I'm trying to think of like I guess I would really have to like get into the nitty gritty to like know if there would be a proposed solution that could work in the benefit of both parties, but I don't really know if that's the case. Because once you get to a point, right, and this is true in any corporate office, if you get to a point to where you have massive separation between you and the teams that are under you, as far as like once you get up to like a CEO, unless it's a small company, you're not gonna fucking know anybody or care about anybody because for you, they're the number with like the little fucking like human emoji next to them. like that's all you look like to the top echelon person or fucking top tier fucking whatever COO, CEO, owner, whatever you want to call it. Um, you end up becoming what essentially I hate saying this term, but like a number on a spreadsheet because that's essentially once you get so much separation, that's what it becomes. And I think honestly, the bigger a corporation gets, the harder it is for somebody way up top who is making these harsh decisions and somebody at the bottom to see eye to eye on the same thing because they live in two separate worlds. Eventually, you have too much separation. And the people at Xbox aren't Elon Musk. Like they're not pulling up a cot on the Tesla shop floor and they're fucking, fucking staying overnight to figure out how to get, Tesla to be more optimal, right? Like they're not putting in that work. I'm a 100% guarantee you that. They're going home like everybody else in their fucking fancy fucking house and they don't notice the struggles in your life at all. And I'm not trying to fucking pretend like Elon's perfect either. I'm just saying, the amount of effort that he puts in versus the amount of effort that a Phil Spencer puts in, or whoever the fucking head guy of Sony is puts in, or the head person of Nintendo. Like none of it even compares. Like there's a massive dichotomy there. So when you have such a separation between the two, arguments like this are going to get blown out of proportion because nobody knows how to meet in the middle for anything when you get this far separated. So I really don't see a conclusion to this where it's like all parties agree amicably about this solution and it makes everything better. It's just not going to happen. It's probably going to get a little ugly, to be honest.
Let's begin with Xbox's promise, and that is of neutrality. That's the attitude that Microsoft promised they would take towards unions back in 2022. Now, at the time, they wanted to make sure
This is another problem. This neutrality thing is bullshit. It's bullshit. There's no such thing as being neutral anything in this world, okay? Eventually you're going to find yourself on one side of the fence or the other. I don't think there might be like a 1% of the population that might be a fence sitter, like a proper like fence sitter, but the likely story is they have their own opinions. They're just not telling you. They're just on an outwardly appearance, they're literally toting that line, as they say. So, that being said, uh, here's the deal. Let me just gather my thoughts here for a second because I want to make sure that I'm speaking clearly on what I'm trying to convey. I think that there is no such thing as a neutral party because, in order to find any sort of neutrality, you have to have the opinions of both sides. And when you absorb into both sides of the argument, you will most likely be swayed to one side or the other. Granted, you may find a neutral agreement, but that doesn't mean you yourself are a neutral party. It just means you are willing to work with somebody who thinks differently than you do. Now, here's the problem. Xbox has put on this fake smile, this fake, oh, everybody is accepted here. We're all hugs and kisses, happy, happy land. That doesn't, that's not how it works. That is not how it works. And I've seen now, I'm not saying that there hasn't been good things that have come from it, right? Because obviously, this whole kind of moving their exclusives and kind of becoming like a proper like mega platform for gaming was a beautiful move. And this fake openness was enough to convince other parties to work with them in a way that would benefit Xbox in the long run. However, um, it puts a sour taste in pretty much everybody's mouth. So the minute that any sort of agreement that causes them to lose their standing happens, their ultimate idea, because essentially somebody who tries to be neutral to everything stands for nothing. Okay, so if they're truly neutral to everything, then that means they have no standing on anything else, which is a problem because if you have nothing to fucking stand on, then that means everything that everybody sees you for is all surface. There's nothing that props it up. All right, there's no foundation to their arguments. There's no like logic to why they remain in such a state, right? Unions are based off of a large extreme of labor mistreatment and workers' rights. Okay, it's a very extremist view, whether you like to admit it or not. Um, and what he said was correct. There is a place for it. There's a place and time for it. There are parties out there, even today. I mean, even a buddy of mine, he's dealing with this fact that there's a conglomerate that has taken up root over a family-owned company that he had worked for over 10 years, and they started running it like it's in their own country. But you can't do that shit here. This is America. We got different labor laws than say Norway or England or Germany or Russia or wherever else. You have to adhere to the laws of the place that you're stationed in. It doesn't matter if your main corporate office is in Shanghai. Like if you operate in America, you follow American laws. If you operate in China, you follow Chinese laws. So whatever you can get away with there is what you can get away with. But it's kind of it's gonna be kind of tough because you can't remain neutral in the face of something radical. It's not gonna happen. And that's just there's so many fucking examples of this throughout history that neutrality never worked for anybody. It never worked. Name a fucking peace agreement that wasn't brought about by war. Like neutrality doesn't happen. Like most of the time there's a cause and effect to a situation, and that is why when these things happen, granted they are solved a lot more, uh it's not like we're in the fucking Viking age anymore and everything isn't solved by Mortal Kombat, right? Nowadays, they sit around just like this on the screen here and people fucking talk it out and they come to decisions, and either those decisions are agreeable or they're disagreeable, but they're decisions that need to be made. So I don't know.
Than Microsoft promised they would take towards unions back in 2022. Now, at the time, they wanted to make sure they had as few blockers as possible to the Activision Blizzard acquisition, so they worked with the Communication Workers of America to draft principles that would make sure workers would be protected. Because, that would help them look good in front of the regulators and they could buy the thing that they wanted, so now Call of Duty money would be.
This is what I'm saying. So I'm saying it's surface because they have no actual standing on whether they approve or disapprove of unions. Now that the shit's come knocking on their fucking front door, they essentially they essentially don't have a choice but to hop off the fence, either on one side or the other. You either go with this, you give them what you want, you meet their demands, or you hop on the other side and you simply just get rid of them. Like, what are you gonna do? You know, that's the difference between Xbox and everybody else. Sony's made it very clear if you want to be a stickler, unionized fucking piece of shit, and not do things their way, then they will simply just not employ you. China has made that same stipulation. Hoyoverse, for example, the fucking VAs started going for a union. They started trying to push these US ideological fucking labor laws on a Chinese company, but they're based in China, so they go by what they believe is the right thing to do. And they chose their side of the fence. Their side of the fence was fuck your union. Guess what? You're out of a job. We're just going to find somebody else. And that's exactly what they did. They're firing VAs left and right. They don't care. And honestly, to be fair, some of the fucking VAs are absolute idiots, but that's neither here nor there.
Satya Nadella money. Woohoo! We, of course, know how all that went with the acquisition, but here's the thing. Now that that acquisition is through, the value of fully living by all of those principles has somewhat decreased. And to make sure you're not out of the loop, here's a summary of things. So the principles are this: that staff would not be treated differently if they wanted to join.
We believe in the importance of listening to our employees' concerns. Our leaders have an open door policy, and we invest in listening systems. This is also fucking pandering bullshit. But we recognize that there may be times where some employees in some countries may wish to form or join a union. So again, this is all surface level speak for we acknowledge the fact that you would like to form or join a union, but it doesn't mean that we're going to fold to your demands. It's all surface level. It's all surface level. It's surface fucking bullshit, apathy, sympathy, fucking uh we believe in your cause, and then when you ask them for a fucking donation, they say, "Oh, we can't really do that today. We're just a little tied up." That's exactly what happens every time. Every time. It's fake. It's all surface.
Join a union would be
Like I
given
said,
easy
no
methods to
foundation.
discuss and access union.
Building on a global labor experiences, we are dedicated to maintaining a close relationship and shared partnership with all our employees, including those represented by a union. Again, just trying to acknowledge the fact that you may feel like you are being mistreated and you may want to come and, start a union or join a union. But, if you come talk to us first, we can cut you a nice fat little fucking raise and then you don't say anything. I think that's a good idea. That's essentially what this all is. Let's see. For several decades, Microsoft has collaborated closely with Works Council across Europe, as well as several unions globally. We recognize that Microsoft's continued leadership and success will require that we continue to learn and adapt to a changing environment for labor relations in the years ahead. Uh, okay. This essentially, so far, is just them just trying to acknowledge the fact that you are essentially wanting that union representation, but still, there's no sort of commitment here that shows me, okay, you know, We aren't just here to simply just acknowledge you. We're here to act on our acknowledgement.
Membership would be guaranteed anonymity if they wanted and would seek arbitration.
We are committed to creative and collaborative approaches with unions when employees wish to exercise their rights, and Microsoft is presented with a specific unionization proposal. In many instances, employee unionization proposals may open an opportunity for Microsoft to work with an existing union on agreed upon processes. See, this is where the fun part begins. Microsoft to work with an existing union on agreed upon processes for employees to exercise their rights through a private agreement. This is what see? This is it, you know. Everything before was all surface level, just trying to acknowledge you, show you shut up. Here, it's okay. We'll agree on our terms. Is essentially what this entire little paragraph here is. In many instances, employee unionization proposals. I hate this word, unionization. I can't say it fast without tongue twistering myself, and it's fucking pissing me off. Proposals may open an opportunity for Microsoft to work with an existing union on agreed upon processes for employees to exercise their rights through a private agreement. We are committed to a collaborative approaches that will make it simpler rather than more difficult for our employees to make informed decisions and exercise their legal right to choose whether to form or join a union. Exactly what I said. Essentially, this says, please come talk to us first. We're your friends. We're Microsoft. We would like to talk to you and come to some sort of something before you go starting a bunch of fucking drama bullshit by forming or joining unions. It's essentially the corporate speak that I see here. Because if they can reach an agreement with you before you go off the deep end, then they don't have to worry about the bullshit. Is essentially what this is essentially what's going on here.
Arbitration between Microsoft and the CWA on any disagreements. Now, there is good news here, and that good news is that staff have exercised those rights.
Almost 200 members of Blizzard's Overwatch 2 team have unionized. The biggest issue was the layoffs at the beginning of 2024. Um, I don't know. This is where the water is going to start getting quite a bit muddy here because I don't know what kind of deal. Because this is the only thing that we know is what we get to see on the surface, right? I don't know what the proper contract is between Blizzard and Microsoft and Activision. I have no idea what the proper agreement is. So I cannot say for sure what is what when it comes to why people are being laid off, what the true intention of the Microsoft team is. So that's kind of tough.
Rights in many cases over the last 3 years. We've seen unions pop up, and before hitting the whole Xbox being dodgy angle, because we're going to hit that and hit it pretty hard because it seems they have been really dodgy, we should cover the latest one, which is a success, and it's that of the Overwatch team. Overwatch isn't the first. Activision Blizzard QA unionized, then World of Warcraft, like the whole WoW dev team, and now Overwatch. And per those principles that I mentioned, Microsoft seem to have not gotten in their way. The new union, called the Overwatch Game Makers Guild, had approval from an overwhelming majority of the studio's union membership, and now they've collected under the Communication Workers of America banner. And like Warcraft, this covers many disciplines, right? Design, production, engineering, art, sound, and quality assurance. And I would say it also feels quite well timed. I think Overwatch 2's original version is firmly dead. That's why I titled that video that way. Now, though, with Stadium, that team is moving from stewardship of a absolutely, as we would say over here, banjaxed shit show, and now they're moving to authorship, making something new within Overwatch. That's good. Thumbs up. Right? They finally crawled out of the sheer hell that IP has faced, and that hell was a motivating factor. A VFX artist called Frank summed it up by directly calling out the massive layoff wave as a major impetus for basically them banding together. And even if you're someone who doesn't care about the conditions under which the thing you enjoy is made, well, this is good for the game that you play. It kind of means the people who make it are a little bit more safe and stable, and they have a little bit more bargaining power. That means they can fight for their best interest, which very often will be yours. How many times?
I'm fine with it so long as it's not pushed at such a radical degree that it allows them to be lazy. Because here's the deal, right? If they are under a union and they release a new title and that game comes out and it's a Cyberpunk 2077 or it's a Fallout 76 or it's a fucking Starfield or it's a fucking No Man's Sky. If it comes out and it's a fucking wreck of a game, then I honestly think they should have their union rights stripped. I think they should be taken away because if you're going to get preferential treatment by joining a union and getting an extra say in things, then you better fucking perform. That's all I got to say. If you're out here dropping Assassin's Creed Shadows, then you should be fucking stripped and fired immediately. I mean, absolutely gutted. Because I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. I do believe in protecting the rights of the of unions and people having the option, right? But I have seen both sides of the coin where unions get used as a weapon, and I also seen the side of a coin where unions actually are super beneficial. As somebody who has worked heavily in the trades for a long time, one of the things that is consistent is unions, the presence of unions, because trade workers are highly underpaid, and they are never fully, never fully treated the way that they should be treated. So you see the presence of a union a lot when it comes to different trades. So that being said, I have seen where it can be beneficial, where it can get a carpenter with 20 years experience a massive pay boost, which they deserve, which no company ever wants to pay. And then I've seen the other side of the coin where people will use a union to absolutely destroy a small, maybe it's a fucking like a grocery store, and it's got, I don't know, 6 7 locations, and it's not that big of a company, but they just can't really, they don't really have the extra funds right now because they're still trying to expand and find new places that they can set up shop, and nobody on the floor who's putting up the produce or who's stocking the shelves or is a cashier, they don't fucking understand that shit. So when they exercise their rights and they unionize and they destroy the place because it causes cashiers to get paid $30 an hour to do absolutely fucking nothing, that's that's when it becomes a problem. That's when it's an overuse of power. So granted, that's kind of an extreme, it's an extreme example. Normally, it doesn't really happen to that extreme that quickly. Normally, it's something that builds up over time. You see this a lot with like Amazon and stuff like that. So that's why like you see Amazon, they'll sometimes capitulate, and then other times they'll tell them to go fuck themselves. Or what was it? What was one that was popular in the U.S.? There's a distribution one that I was trying to think of. Uh, was it one of the ports? I think it was like the port workers or something like that went on strike, and they were essentially fighting for the same thing. They wanted proper fucking proper treatment. So that's like another scenario where it's like, and I don't know actually whatever came of that. I know the agreement got postponed as like a temporary truce type of thing, just so that they can keep things flowing. Um, I can't remember. I thought it was like one of the U.S. ports or something like that, where the workers were going to bat against the corporation or whatever that was running it. I can't remember.
Times does something come out early because up top demands and it just hasn't made sense. It's crashed and burned and it's hurt you, the customer. That's the sort of thing that we do not want. Those cuts
Yep.
killed your hopes of the Overwatch 2 that you wanted. They primarily hit the PvE team. They were pushed to deliver a product that was sold terribly by management before then being punished for it. And to top that all off, the whole studio was then punished whenever management changed their compensation scheme.
Wait, they changed the compensation scheme? Overwatch 2 devs lose bonus pay after Blizzard
That
policy
feels
change.
bad. And why should you care? Well, do you know who doesn't do things like that? Larian. Do you know who's used every award ceremony and interview opportunity that he has had to reinforce how this AAA bullshit of chewing through staff is robbing you of good games? Oh, it's Van, the CEO and founder of Larian. And
True.
with that in mind, we now turn to Xbox's other acquisition and the examples of Microsoft perhaps being bad. I begin this segment with a quote. It's become increasingly clear that although Microsoft tries to position itself as a good faith employer, there's another story being told behind the scenes at the bargaining table. Now, that's a quote that comes from Autumn Mitchell. He's a senior QA tester and he's part of the 300 strong ZeniMax Workers United.
300 QA testers have voted in favor of forming ZeniMax Workers United as the tech sector faces increasing calls for transparency and equitable conditions.
Union who are still trying to reach a deal. And when I say still, I really do mean it. They've been trying since their January 2023 formation. So just 2 years and no deal. That won't feel good, but of course, here's the thing, and you've likely thought of it as well. Microsoft promised to recognize these unions and let them organize. They never made a promise to give them what they want.
What did I say? What did I say? Huh? That's how all these corporate fucking schemes work, man. Especially when you get to big conglomerates. It's always recognition, but never action. Like they don't give a fuck. They don't care. Like you think anything is keeping them from fucking absolutely just fucking snapping Blizzard out of existence? They don't care. They'll fire the whole freaking studio. They don't. Oh, Blizzard Entertainment, who's that? Fired. Done. The smart thing would be to essentially just I don't know. I don't know the best way to do it. I don't know what kind of contract they have. Maybe they can just simply just quit and then form their own studio under a whole different name and publish their own games and just leave the IPs. I don't know. Like that's what I would think to do, but again, I don't know what kind of contract they have and it would be tough to do a brand new startup. You would have to have a whole new investor.
And that applies not just to ZeniMax. Raven Software were the first union to form under Xbox in 2022, but as of August 2024, they reported the same thing to quote, bad faith bargaining. But then they actually went further. They filed a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board. In that, they alleged that Microsoft had engaged in, quote, concerted activities. Now, that effectively means retaliation or punishment against union members. That obviously goes against the principles that Microsoft agreed to. Remember, the principles that they agreed to help them do the merger that they wanted. And this is the
This is what I'm saying. You can't remain neutral. It's just not possible. Even if you outwardly remain neutral, which is what Xbox has essentially done, they've put this outward appearance that they are neutral to all parties. But on the inward side of things, what they actually think is very much the opposite of that. If anything, they're on one side of the fence way more than the other, and it's looking like they're anti union more than anything else. They are open to acknowledging unions, but they are not open to bargaining with said unions. Otherwise, they would have had deals reached long ago.
atmosphere in which these discussions are taking place. Because of that, the ZeniMax Workers Union have taken the next step, where, with 94% approval, they have authorized strike action as a threat for their bargaining committee. And this matters because these are the QA teams behind games like Doom the Dark Ages and Indiana Jones. That matters. That is a threat that carries weight for Microsoft's bottom line, and they've proved that they are ready to use it because that group participated in a 1 day strike back in November because of restrictive return to office policies and outsourcing concerns. Those
Restrictive return to office policies? What does that mean? It means Microsoft's not letting them work at home? Because if that's what that is, like, obviously you should be at the office working. There's no reason your lazy fucking ass should be at home fucking doing all your fucking coding and shit on the fuck computer and trying to fucking, pretend like you're actually getting valuable work done. Like the whole point of an office setting is so that you are in a work environment where everybody is focused on producing whatever it is they got to produce. Like it's no different than working a production job when everybody's lined up together and they're fucking throwing hams down the line, fucking getting them ready to be shipped out, right? It's no different than that. Like everybody has the same fucking goal and everybody works together to achieve said fucking goal. Like this is something it's been around since before all of us were even fucking alive. Like there was always some sort of work system in play to optimize productivity. It's always been a thing.
November because of restrictive return to office policies and
This is what I want to know. Like this is why I would need to know the details because I was like, what is restrictive about the policies that require them to return to office? Like, because this is stupid. Remote working is bullshit. There is no fucking reason your ass should be fucking required or not required to be at the office working. It's so stupid. I don't believe in it. I think it's a farce. I think it's fucking it's just lazy. Like it's lazy and it makes people less productive. And as much as people would like to argue otherwise, you're bullshitting. Especially if you have a family and shit at home, your ass isn't getting shit done.
outsourcing concerns. Those outsourcing concerns matter, and we are going to talk about them. I've been a lifelong fan of Halo. My God, have some of Microsoft's policies hurt that franchise as well. So now there's a standoff. Microsoft can negotiate with the committee to address their concerns, or they can risk the consequences, which could be less QA. You know, the one thing that we don't need. A lot of people may say, all right, well, it's less QA because the QA workers are striking. Yeah, but they're also striking for a reason. Funnily enough, most of them would like to do the job that they're doing under good conditions. And where the stakes get higher is this stuff might go beyond just the QA at ZeniMax, because under the banner of the Communication Workers of America are the World of Warcraft development team, Raven Software QA, ZeniMax Online Studios, and many, many, many more. If they decide to act in solidarity with the ZWU, it could be a humongous hit to Xbox. Basically, kind of like strike action domino theory could happen. Now, the thing is, Xbox is giving them no reason not to, it appears right now anyway. And these are the people, remember, who are fighting to make their jobs better, and they're getting nowhere. And you know what that's going to mean? It means that the games are not going to get better either. I didn't bring up Larian just to glaze them for making a good game. I brought them up because they're a company who have made a public point of treating their people well and actually giving a shit about retention, about
I was gonna say that's pretty true, right? Because like unions never happen in places where employees are treated fairly. It's they never come about because nobody has a reason to fight. You have to take away that reason to fight. So if it's because the work environment, uh, it's if you have to do I don't know, just for fucking something completely off the wall here. This is a hypothetical, but say your employees have 8 hours to complete 100,000 lines of code, right? If that is overwhelmingly too much work to do, then clearly, and this is where the problems happen, right? Because the productivity usually becomes down on things when the productivity itself, not the people, The productivity itself, the system in place, is not optimal enough to take advantage of it. So, one thing I do agree with Xbox on is people should be in the office. There's no reason that you need to be at home. Get your lazy fucking ass to work and sit in your little fucking cubicle or whatever the fuck it is and fucking do the shit, right? One thing I would disagree with is say they fucking made him come into work with a fucking uniform on. There's no reason for that to be the thing. Just let him show up in a fucking t-shirt and some jeans or some shit or a fucking pair of cargo shorts or whatever. They're just gonna be sitting in a fucking cubicle for fuck's sake. There's no reason to have a uniform. So like those are two different things. Like one is much different than the other, right? But I do feel one is necessary, one is unnecessary because one optimizes things and it ramps up productivity, where the other one is a very unnecessary change that is actually restrictive. There's no reason to require a uniform in a place where nobody's ever gonna fucking see you. So, like, what's the point? You know? Uh, and a lot of companies will make the excuse of like harboring a professional environment, and I was like, it's a fucking game studio. You're all working on a hobby that is essentially going to be seen by the masses. And it should be a hobby that everybody in that studio enjoys. Otherwise, the game's going to come out and look like fucking corporate shit, which is why Assassin's Creed Shadows came out look like corporate shit because there was nothing to the game. There's nothing to the game. It wasn't an Elden Ring. It wasn't a Black Myth Wukong. It wasn't a fucking I mean even fucking Astrobot was a better fucking game. And it's just a Nintendo ripoff, but it's a fucking better game than the Assassin's Creed fucking Shadows. Like there's actual thought put into the game. Like the people who made the game wanted to play the game. So you could tell that the passion went into the game itself. So I kind of find it to be strange that more companies haven't seen this. And Baldur's Gate 3 is another obvious example of this. I try not to use Baldur's Gate 3 for everything because it's just like such an obvious example. But yeah, it just kind of blows my mind a little bit. And I mean, there was even a point where fucking the team at Cyberpunk, CD Project Red, they were going down the wrong path as well, but they did a course correction and they fixed their mistakes, and they figured out that, you know, having those principles were the proper way to do things. Making a game that you truly want to play um, is the most important part of video games as a whole. It's not numbers on a spreadsheet. It's not what you're going to get in a return. It's about putting the passion into the game and then letting the game speak for itself. And it's no different than Power World. Granted, it's under the fucking, scrutiny of Nintendo right now. Hopefully, my thoughts go out to Power World's dev team, Pocket Para. Hope they're doing okay. Hope they make it out of that all right. But outside of that, they put their passion into the game, and it shows because that game sold wildly on every platform it was on.
About not just doing random massive layoffs. That's led to a world class genre defining game. We should have more of those, and that's why this shit matters. This stuff, of course, is not a silver bullet. I'm not saying that Immunion will magically just solve everything and hey, Overwatch is back now. I'm not saying.
It won't. I think it'll actually probably make things worse if I'm being honest with you, because this is when the real drama starts, right? Once the talks begin, both sides are going to come to the table with absolutely unreasonable demands, and it's going to be a whole fucking political thing for a while until they finally reach an agreement that, generally speaking, doesn't even solve the problem. It just band-aids it until it blows up again later.
That. Because as Xbox have shown, they have all the power right now and they can just stall shit. And changes at the National Labor Relations Board does mean that there's even less institutional power backing the workers against management if they do choose to act. But at its core, it's about recognizing that the people who make the games that we love actually deserve to be able to do that safely and securely. so many instances, our games suffer because of the whims of a market that cares too much about the next quarter, not even the next five
Yep.
years. And look, I'm basically a capitalist, right? I basically am, okay? Do you know how, like, so much of this shit pisses me off? It feels like it's corrupting the spirit of what capitalism is supposed to do. I know that's going to get me a lot of flack. That's cool. I love you guys, especially when you're giving me flack. That's how we all learn. My point, though, would be even if we're going to say that the shareholder returns matter, why are we talking about next quarter instead of the next 5 years? Because surely the next 5 years is what will give you strategically meaningful results that are transformationally better for your shareholders. Why are we optimizing the wrong thing? Why are we doing it at the expense of the people who we hire to actually do jobs?
Yeah, my best example for why great games matter is because my best example for this is Skyrim. Skyrim hard carried Bethesda's reputation for over 10 fucking years. That's how long this game has absolutely hard carried it. Let's see, Skyrim came out in 2011. We are in 2025, so 9, yeah, almost 15 years. Almost 15 years. Skyrim's reputation carried Bethesda through absolute dark times because it allowed people to ignore Bethesda's failures. Starfield came out, it flopped. They tried selling it for $100 like a fucking idiot, and it was the biggest fucking mistake of their life. They made a procedurally generated game with no content. That's retarded. They had two guns. Two guns that were all the fucking same. Oh god. What a shit game. Uh but people forgave that because they still had the memories of Skyrim because they were still playing the fucking game. Granted, it's modded probably like mine that's got like 300 plus mods on it and I melt my computer every time I play it, but I still play the game. I still load it up occasionally and I have a 6 hour fucking play session. Um Even though I probably go into it thinking, "Oh, I'll play it for like an hour or so," and then I end up, "Oh shit, it's fucking 9 o'clock at night. I've been playing this shit all day." Like I still get that feeling. Even this long after its release, I still have that feeling uh playing that game. And it's because it's a great game on a base level. It's a great game. Granted, it has been kept up with modding, obviously, but if the game wasn't good to begin with, nobody would mod it. It wouldn't be number 1 on the Nexus. Like, come on now. So that yeah, that's my best example of that. And then obviously now we have the Oblivion remaster, which went off very well with everybody. Um, and so far playing that, I have absolutely enjoyed it. It brought back so many memories.
That is a problem. And you know what? I don't need to tell you what happens whenever staff don't have a good working environment because it's almost statistically impossible that the games
Granted, Bethesda did not, make that game, but they did oversee it. I forgot to add that in about the Oblivion thing.
you love have been untouched by the deep rot that has set in within this industry. And you know what? It gives me a bit of heart that the 500 person like World of Warcraft union exists. Because guess what? If more, I mean, he's not there now anymore, but if more Bobby Kotick style bullshit or whatever, right, was to happen or was to fall on that team, well, you know what? That team has them by the goddamn balls because World of Warcraft drives a lot of revenue. When those people band together, they can actually hit corporate back.
I never understood World of Warcraft. I was never a WoW guy. Uh, I'm never a League of Legends guy. I'm like barely a gotcha game guy too. Like I barely spend money on games, right? I think the only gotcha game that I've played on a consistent level for a little bit of time was Genshin. I played a little bit of Zenless Zone Zero, not very much. And then I have been enjoying Wuthering Waves recently. In that game I did spend money on. So yeah,
Back where it hurts. And I don't think I need to explain to gamers why that matters because
but that's about the only game aside from when I was still like a PvP guy, uh, when I was super into BRs, I was playing Apex Legends. I spent a little money on that game. So there's not very many games where I've been like microtransaction heavy that I've enjoyed putting money into.
Well, we play video games. We know that balance and tuning is important. And in a way, this is basically that, but applied to how the game is made. And on the topic of this stuff mattering, hit up this video next. It's about Ubisoft and Tubisoft because Nubisoft is actually comprised of Ubisoft owning Tubisoft. That all may sound completely insane
What
and
the fuck?
unhinged, but it's actually true. And you can
Crazy. W. Belidar News. Go to his channel, give him a sub, give him a like. I always love looking at these videos. He's pretty well informed. It keeps me somewhat well informed as well myself. But that's gonna be it for this video. I got another video to record and I gotta make some food. So I'm gonna catch you guys in the next video. Later.